co-host Kloda, who's not at liberty to say hello at the moment on account that she's currently sound asleep in the chair beside me. Unfortunately, Matt was unable to join us today. He's stuck at a barbecue sausage sizzle at Bunnings raising money for some cause. I'm not entirely sure, but who I am joined by is KatyMcManus, who is a local emerging artist who I met recently at her exhibition in Fremantle.
Yes.
For those that are listeners to the show, you might recall I actually reviewed the exhibition it was beginning of August, is that right?
Yes. Yeah. August 5th through the 28th.
Can I just get you to move that microphone just a little bit closer to you now?
Can you not hear me?
Just move it just like this.
Oh.
That's it.
Is that
perfect.
better?
That's much better.
Yeah.
So a little bit about Katy. Katy is an emerging artist who manifests her work by channeling subconscious needs through meditation. She's a US expat who is now residing in Perth. She is a passionate artist and says her practice helps her reflect her insights, interpretations of the world and the ether around us. Katy creates with the belief that these works of art will both inspire others and honour the subject matter of each creation. Welcome to the studio, Katy. Please tell us, how did your artistic journey begin?
Thank you for having me on IPL Radio, dedicated to health and wellness. It's really great to be here and talk about my art and life a bit. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Santa Rosa, California. My parents divorced when I was young, so my brother and I knew life as going to school on the East Coast and summer swimming in the Pacific Ocean in Northern California. And my mother is a retired registered nurse that also owned a flower shop and video store that all us kids worked at, and my father was an electrical engineer. I was heavily influenced by my grandfather, who lived next door to my mother until his death when I was young. His death kind of marked the end of my childhood and made me question mortality, religion, and took away the only person that fully understood me. And that was the first time that I experienced depression. Sometimes I feel like my art is just me sending out a signal for his replacement, and it probably is. The only consistent theme throughout my collection is every single piece sold always includes paperwork that is devoted to his memory. I wouldn't be able to paint or create anything without his influence. Mm-hmm. I don't think I would have had the confidence, you know? But after that, I felt like an adult. After his death, I felt like an adult trapped in a child's body with a very dark sense of humor that the other kids just really didn't seem to understand. I never fully connected with the few friends I had my age, and was also constantly bullied from age 8 up through high school. It got so bad I actually transferred schools my senior year. I adored my time, though, at the new school and truly thrived there and made friends there that I have to this day. My only regret is not going there sooner.
Yep. I remember I was trying to get my dad to let me change schools because I was being bullied by, apparently I was quite tough looking, and so the tough girls in the year above me all sort of challenged me to a fight, and I didn't really understand why. I couldn't fight to save my life, and my dad taught me how to fight, but it didn't work, and I still got picked on, and so I got a really heavy bottomed honey jar, and bashed myself in the face with it until I gave myself a black eye, and then appealed to my dad to let me change schools because I was being bashed.
How old were you?
About 13.
Wow.
He didn't let me change schools. He said toughen up and grin and bear it.
Are you glad for that now, though? Are you glad that he did it make you tougher, more resourceful?
I don't know. Who knows what life would have been like if I got to change schools.
Yeah. Oh, I feel bad talking about my experience. It was just that 1 year, though, but I feel your pain.
To try and get out of being bullied.
Oh, it's the worst. Nothing works. My mom gave me the exact opposite advice. She was like, kill him with kindness. Mm-hmm. Just be nice. You know, those girls that beat my ass. I'm like, I like your earrings. And she leave me alone for 1 second. But no, nothing works with bullies. Yeah, no. It's bad. But yeah, I had a good experience there, though. You know, it worked out the last year, and like I said, I got friends that I have to this day. So shout out to Mark, Sarah, Rob 1, and Rob 2, real quick, if they're listening, which would be awesome. It's like 2 a.m. where they are right now, so probably not. But whatever. But in the time before the transfer, it was actually like a blessing in disguise. As it turned out, as a result of being kind of like a social pariah for some reason, which I still don't understand. I don't think I'll ever understand like why exactly I was bullied, why I was targeted. But I would spend most days working at one of our family's businesses and saving for my future, and my nights isolating in my room. And from that came reflection and time to explore things that I was truly interested in. I was like darkly gifted the time to learn discipline and be introspective and disappear into movies, listen to music, learn how to sew, explore for geodes and fossils in my area, play video games, and I read a lot. Like a lot. My mom's always been into books. She just devours them. She reads every single night before she goes to bed diligently. And she read to us kids all the time. What's that?
I challenged myself once to read a book a day for a year, and I extended it for 3 years. So I ended up reading about 300 books a year for 3 years.
It's so good, isn't
books
it?
Altogether.
What was your favorite genre?
I have a couple, but I'm particularly fond of modern moral dilemma, Jodi Picoult, and also modern historical fiction, like Bryce Courtney. So yeah, I like the thicker the better.
Yeah, me too. Have you been getting into audiobooks yet?
No, I haven't. I haven't read since that challenge.
Audio.
That was 7 years ago, since I moved into my house in North Fremantle. I haven't picked up a book. I read one book on my way home from holidays this year. Yeah. It's the only book I've read in.
Yeah, that's the only time I read an actual book is on holiday now as well. I've been trying to go through the Outlander series for like months now, but like audio, I'll listen to at least one book a week.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I do audible.com. And it's awesome. I wish they would sponsor me, hint, hint, if anybody knows any connections. But yeah, I'm hooked on them. I just got done with the Thursday Murder Club. The second book dropped a couple months ago. I want to listen to that. And then the third book's on its way, and it's really cute. It's about a bunch of retirees in a nursing home, and every Thursday they get together and go through these old case files and try to, solve these cases, and it never goes anywhere. It's just like a knitting circle, but when it really gets interesting is when death happens at their front door, and they've got to solve the case, and they've got to like, pretend that they're like feeble and stuff to like get into the police station's computers, and like it's really cute. Like it's a good read. I feel like it doesn't matter your age or background or anything. Like it's like the Golden Girls solve murder mysteries. It's awesome. It's so good. But yeah, like at that time I was being like really, like Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill listening, like angstful teen, so I was reading like C.S. Lewis and, reflecting on like, my religious upbringing and questioning all that, and like Poe and Milton and Orwell, Shakespeare, and Kurt Vonnegut Jr., like Breakfast of Champions. That is my favorite book back in the day before the internet. If some boy was interested in me and he would ask me out, I would give him a copy of that book and I would hide my phone number in it somewhere, hoping they would call. It's like, if he's going to take the effort to read this book, like I'm down with that guy. And one guy ever actually read the book and called, and I was with him for 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was awesome, and we're still friends. He's like, he's super cool dude. But yeah, that's romance. Romance is dead, apparently.
Yeah.
It's just an app.
Yeah.
But I also I ordered subscriptions to National Geographic, Scientific American, which made me yearn for travel and connecting with visionaries, and I began painting and writing poetry and short stories that would eventually get me published and awarded first prize in a national poetry competition that they held in the United States at the age of 22, right after university. After that, I received my first solo art exhibition, like on chance. It was a complete fluke, featuring my mixed media paintings on canvas. So I took the award money from that to fund my first solo show. And when nothing sold from that show, I decided to buckle down and get a real job. That landed me in operations management, which I actually loved, and all my work experience with my parents between the video store and the flower shop really helped me succeed there. It was a job I was good at, but I didn't have a passion for. And creative pursuits and travel kind of took a backseat, but I never forgot about my dreams. So when my father passed away in 2011, he left me enough money to start over. So that's precisely what I did. By 2014, I was doing my dream job, running a family friend's art gallery and tattoo shop, and touring the United States with my pop-up gallery. Unfortunately, the tattoo shop was not stable. It was pretty unstable, and I knew I needed to find a way to supplement my income. So I started to apply to festivals, and to my surprise, I booked so many I was actually turning people away, so I wouldn't double book or anything would overlap, and finding myself on tour for months at a time, it was awesome. I have so many fond memories of those early days of live painting. I was able to live paint
in the States.
Yeah, for people listening that don't know what live painting is, it's literally when you go to a music or an arts festival, it's typically next to a band or bands, and you literally take your canvas and your easel and you sit in a field, or you're in a pop-up gallery or under a pavilion or in an old barn, and you're painting alongside with all these other painters, and hopefully you finish the painting by the end of the festival and sell it. That's the goal, We're both coughing. It's dry in here.
And in the winter months you would teach?
I would teach in the winter months, those paint and sip classes. It was a chain, but I really loved it. I always got to teach classes from 3 to 30 people. It was really fun. It was beat the clock. So you had to do it in 2 hours, and they had to leave with a completed painting and dried.
We did that.
It's cool.
I've done one. I did a gorilla.
Nice.
It was good fun.
Yeah, they're good. People come for bachelorette parties and baby showers. It was just really nice, and it gave me a lot of confidence in public speaking, because I've always been really bad about public speaking. So it really helped me get over a lot of fears in that department. And all of that together, I was working really hard. I was trying to manage the tattoo shop was a total lost cause, while I'm trying to do all this painting and I'm trying to move. It was just all this stuff. My efforts and hard work weren't in vain. They also earned me sponsorships at the time, so I didn't really have to worry about paying for canvases or art supplies when I was traveling the East Coast. One through a Pittsburgh-based artist collective that I'm actually still a part of back in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, called Red Fishbowl, and another through a small art supply shop called Madison Art Supply in New Jersey. I was painting all of my favorite scientists from childhood, which inspired me to see the world from different perspectives: Tesla, Einstein, and Hawking. But my most popular painting at the time in the beginning was of Maynard Keenan from the band Tool. It was my first portrait painting, and I couldn't put a price on it. I just wanted it to find a good home with a collector that would cherish it, and ended up trading it at a music festival to a glassblower so I could get 2 gifts for my friends that accompanied me to Gem and Jam Music Festival in Arizona that year. I didn't think life could get much better, honestly, until I found a decommissioned golf course renting out the old caretaker's home. It was 95 acres with a creek, so much wildlife, and it was really affordable. I even joked that it was probably haunted because it was so cheap. It was just a dream come true. It was really private. It was in the hills, tons of trees. It was just the perfect place to meditate and make art. But in 2016, my world kind of came crashing down when I miscarried my only pregnancy at the beginning of my second trimester. It was a boy. I don't want to get into it, but I was alone and afraid, and practically no one knew I was pregnant because the baby's father forced me to hide it, and I mourned alone while he disappeared for weeks afterwards without explanation. It was a really chaotic time in my life. These were my darkest days. And I don't remember a lot other than a desperate need to get away and get to another country. I just had it in my head. I want to live in another country. I'm done with America. I just wanted to get as far away as possible. And I was feeling like a zombie on autopilot with suicidal thoughts. I felt an emptiness that words don't exist for. I felt trapped, and my paradise now felt like a prison. In August 2018, I burned, donated, or sold everything I owned and packed 4 bags for Bali. Booked my 6-month visa, and I bounced. I was over it. I was ready to go to Indonesia and start over, and my plan was like to see the world and find myself and make art and apprentice under a master painter that was living there. And the so-called master ended up being a hopeless, dysfunctional drunk that I learned nothing from, but I'm resourceful and ended up making friends with a ton of creatives that taught me personal and painting lessons I'll use for life. Bali is such a magical place. It's just a hotbed for artistic expats. I can't tell you how many artists I met from all over the world, and just on the same journey I'm on. You know, they were recovering from traumas and looking for healing. And Bali, despite the commercial touristy spots, when you get to the meat and potato of it, when you get up into those hills, it's, I don't know, there's an energy there. You know, it's very healing there. And I was still in mourning, but happy. And I felt like life had light and hope and promise again. I was making all these friends. I was making all this art. I was feeling really good about myself. I felt free. Then on January 18th of 2019, on my birthday, my child's father posted revenge porn of me online, and I was right back in that dark space again. And this is after not having contact with this dude for 6 months. It was just out of the blue, and it was, you know, we were trauma bonded. It was a toxic relationship. I'm not going to get into it, but it was just shocking after all of that time. It's like, even while we were together, like, there's nothing I did that justified something so vicious and permanent. You know, like, it's impossible to get that back. It's on the internet. It won't be taken down. It can't be taken down. It's, I don't know. Anyways, I was living literally as far away from him as possible on the opposite side of the planet. Like, I couldn't have gotten far enough away from him. I didn't think he could hurt me anymore. And I was very wrong. Everyone I knew had seen the photos. My mother being the first person to inform me, and the shock and humiliation from that messed with my head for years. As these pictures, like I said, are circulating the internet and impossible to get taken down. I went back and forth between anger and forgiveness, even reaching out time and time again, never getting an explanation, apology, or anything to explain why this was done to me. I didn't find peace or validation until this past year, when I chose to enlist in therapy to get help with this, finally. And it's the best decision I've ever made. Back in the beginning, I was catatonic, just for like a week. And then I figured I couldn't change what happened, so I continued to try and focus on art, and made almost 200 paintings and mandalas in my 18 months on the island. I felt really good about that. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, my husband, Paul, fell into my life. Now in our home, with our 2 staffies, Winston and Franklin, I create artwork using mixed media and paint using primarily the Miche technique. I make my own frames and stretcher bars and mandalas and portraits, usually in the style of visionary artwork with a psychedelic flow, using oils and acrylics and most recently gold leaf. And last but not least, I am the original inventor of meditative puzzles that are based on art therapy research done by Carl Jung. They're very interesting. I have tested them. I have a poor man's patent on them that I've had for 6 years now. Highly recommend checking them out on my website that we'll talk about later at the end of the show, so stay tuned.
We're going to cost us some music. It's been a fair bit of chat. If you're going to have a song by Jack Davis and the Bush Chooks, this is Broken Thumb.
I'm Coming to you from Rockingham, IPL Radio.
And that was Broken Thumb by Jack Davies and the Bush Chooks. Welcome to the Yarn, Homespun Arts and Music. You're here with Sandii and my silent partner Kloda, and we are joined today by artist KatyMcManus, who was just telling us about her art meditative puzzles that are based on art therapy research done by Carl Jung. Before the song, what prompted your move to Western Australia?
Well, my husband Paul and I met in Bali on a random chance that I saw my wandering photographer friend John Logan at a beach full of thousands of people, and Paul turned out to be the brother of one of John's mates. We talked until sunrise, and he flew back to see me almost every weekend for the next 2 months. He kind of swept me off my feet. And we'll be married 2 years on the 18th of December this year. He's the entire reason I'm in Australia. Mm-hmm. Mainly because his work is here, but we both love to travel this country. We call this home and camp here and visit other countries in our spare time. He's so connected with nature. I've learned a lot from him. He loves to fish, and he's really good when we're camping about picking up any rubbish that we see around our site, even if it's not ours. And he's really conscious of driving over plants, and he's just really considerate and very knowledgeable. You know, he's a proper arborist, so I've learned a lot of plant names and the origins, and it's really nice. It's very inspiring, and I learn a lot from him. And the Australian landscape is only rivaled by a few places on Earth. I'm constantly awestruck by the beauty of this country. I feel like I could spend my entire life exploring new parts of this place. It feels like sacred land. And that feeling increases the further you get from society and cities. I've never been
up north?
Anywhere like it, you know.
Have you been up north to Ningaloo?
Yeah, it's so nice.
I just
isn't
recently went to Shark Bay after Wild and Free 2022. I got a small grant from the Mental Health Commission to pay for my accommodation, and the NDIS were kind enough to pay for the fuel, so we went on a little trip to Shark Bay, which was great fun, and went quad biking and jet skiing and fishing, and got really connected to nature, and it really does feel like sacred country.
It does, and you don't see traces of people outside of the trails that you're driving down and walking on. It's astonishing.
And how has your art practice changed since making the move?
Right now I'm getting more into gold leaf and realizing that the mandalas I've been making for years, which are actually Polish-based, honoring a part of my family, they look a lot like the dot work, Australian-based art from the Dreamtime stories, only organized in sacred geometry patterns. Mm-hmm. I like the idea of the reflective surface, the gold and silver leaf changing and becoming a part of the viewer and vice versa. The painting isn't fully realized until it's being viewed. It's like the Schrodinger's cat of my painting portfolio. It's either dead or alive, and you'll never know it or yourself until you look at it. I've painted abstract, sacred geometry, portraits, magic surrealism, visionary art. That's what really got me started. But I've painted animals and insects, landscapes, and sci-fi. As my interests are vast, so is my catalog of collected works. But I'm actively seeking my creative signature, like an artistic mantra that I can consistently incorporate into every painting abstractly. I'm still waiting to build my dream studio, so I can do the giant paintings that I love so much. I want paintings I gotta grab a ladder for to paint. I like paintings that force me to stand and stretch and really get in tune with my body, and paintings that just beg to be danced with. The smaller the painting, the more time I find wasted. I like the smaller paintings. I find I waste time fussing over mistakes that would never happen on the large canvas. And I've got the space now for decent-sized ones, but not really what I want to do. I want to get back into murals and just kind of dance with my artwork again.
Would you consider doing murals outside buildings in Fremantle.
I need to
Well,
get a
me
mentor.
and my go-to Fremantle. I'm sure there's other places that have murals as well.
Yeah, but the stuff in Fremantle is so great. I would love to just sit there and watch, and learn. I know nothing about outdoor murals. I've done indoor murals, heaps of them.
Do you know
but
Mercedes
never
Knapp,
outdoor.
Joy? Same as Joy Knapp. She's a friend artist of mine that did a mural just on South Terrace, just recently finished. I can put you in touch and
Oh, yeah.
have a chat about mural art.
Yeah, if she's not creeped out by having me sit there and watch her do her work so I can learn.
No, she does love painting.
That's cool. Yeah,
So-
ask her. Ask
Yeah, I
her
will.
if she's okay with some weirdo from
I
America
will.
sitting there and watching her paint.
So you've been quoted as saying, faith doesn't reside in four walls and a steeple, but everywhere in nature, and more often than not in artwork that inspires us to look beyond ourselves and our egos. Please explain to our audience what you mean by that.
This is a big one with a big backstory for me. So when I was young and raised Catholic, we were heavily involved in the church, as my grandmother was one of their biggest donors. My brother was an altar boy, and I helped the nuns on Sundays set up and break down before and after Sunday school. So when the church doors were locked the day my grandfather died, I sat there for hours contemplating. This was the first time I thought organized religion is BS. I thought if the priest isn't here to hear my confessions and I die on my bicycle on the way home, I'll die with sins on my soul and go to hell. But what about my grandfather? Where was he? I had so many questions and the doors were locked. I thought surely this isn't how God operates on like a 9 to 5 schedule. And if the priest was the conduit to talking to God, I was kind of like in a sticky situation. And after much thought and eventually hunger, I went home and I never went back to that church again. I didn't understand it, and I felt like it was a waste of time after that. And it's funny because years later, that same priest, Father Benz, Google it, people, it was a huge news story from that church, Blessed Sacrament Church in Natrona Heights, Pennsylvania, would be involved in a scandal involving a sexual relationship with his married secretary, embezzlement, and gambling, which made national news at the time. It was shocking. Which didn't really help my opinion either.
No, I can imagine it would.
Yeah. I briefly explored alternative religions and settled on Wicca and have been naturally channeling my inherent white magic ever since. I listen to my body signals to guide me and trust in my intuition and block people and situations that disrupt that. That tell me, no, don't trust your gut. If I don't want to go down that dark alley, I'm not going to continue to walk alongside somebody. It's like, no, ignore that. It's fine. Let's keep going down there. Like, I'm done with people like that in my life, like having me second guess what my body already knows is correct. So always with my depression, you get really disconnected from your body and you don't really feel whole or grounded or centered. I feel like it's just, I don't know. I just feel like it's better to kind of recognize those types of people and those energy sucks and those events and those situations that pull your instincts in different directions, make you question what your gut is telling you. It felt natural to quiet the mind outside in nature and focus on manifestation and frequency instead of money and pleasing a deity that I didn't fully understand. This carried me to my faith practices now. I don't subscribe to any formal religion, but fill my spiritual cup in many ways. Some very traditional and others that go very far down the rabbit hole, like DMT and sweat lodges and ayahuasca and focused meditation, all of that. If I need immediate and swift action for friends, I'll pray to my Ganesha statue and offer him incense and flowers and sweets. If I lose something, I still find myself praying to Saint Anthony and saying the old rhyme that we were taught as kids. If you lost something, it can't be found, pray to Saint Anthony, it'll come around. It's like leaning on those old rituals, and sometimes I want the familiar smells of incense and ritual, so I'll go to a Catholic mass. You know, or I'll just go to a Catholic church when it's closed and just like light a candle, you know, for my loved ones. If I need to feel free and dance, I'll go to a Baptist ceremony. Or if I just need to scream and cry, which is 99% of the time, I'll call on Gaia and have her guide me through nature that day, which is the most effective, you know. I don't think any organized religion as we know it got it right. I think a lot of different people saw a lot of the same things and interpreted them in different ways. And all that was further bastardized and influenced by political agendas, greed, and deliberate and accidental misinterpretations, making them virtually useless. I sense that there are ancestral guides all around us. And these practices, like these places of worship, and tools are merely physical objects for us to focus our intentions, hopes, dreams, and wishes on. It's all about meditation and recentering and calming oneself. Earthly scriptures don't even factor into it for me. This is nonsense, honestly. I call this energy in the ether around us source. I've got no other name for it. I heard a psychic on TV say it years ago, and I thought, that sounds about right. Let's call it source. You know, and whatever gives you peace and doesn't hurt anyone else is okay with me.
Call it Bob.
You know, I like that.
I had a deep meditation one night, aided and abetted by some chemicals, and I harassed God for hours about what is his real name, and he's like, Sandii, you're not meant to know until you cross over into the light. And I said, yeah, but I need to know now. And he told me because I'm an Aries and he knew that I wasn't going to let it go. I'm a Dragon Aries and he created me that way. So obviously it's his fault that I'm not going to let it go. He said, but however, you will forget by the morning because you're not supposed to know. I'll tell you so that you'll fall asleep, but you'll forget by the morning. But what you will remember is I said, just call me Bob, because as God, I don't want people fighting over my name, over bastardizations of what I'm talking about. Just call me Bob and get on with it.
I like that. I had a friend named Bob growing up during
all other Bobs have to have a last name.
Oh no, this Bob didn't have a last name.
Bob, because Bob is God.
we would just message him and be like, is Bob around? Does Bob want to hang out tonight? Should we pick up Bob? Do you want to pick up Bob, or should I pick up Bob? But the thing was that years later, we finally revealed to my mom that there was no Bob, and Bob was code for us sneaking out and doing shit that we weren't supposed to be doing. So pro tip, guys, if you want to sneak around, make up a friend, because it totally works.
So you call it the source?
Yeah, I call it source, and at the end of days like this where I need that spiritual cup filled and I need, to recenter, I usually sketch in my notebook during or afterwards, and I'm never without that. Yeah. It's so good to have a notebook on hand to write your thoughts and draw in. This aids in my mental health and helps with my depressive episodes like nothing else, and helps me find patterns and break harmful ones. Yeah, it's a really good tracker for that. And if you don't commit it to, the mindset of, oh, what if I lose this? Should I be writing in third person? Should I be writing to the journal? Should I be treating it like a person? Should I hide stuff just in case I do lose it? Just screw that. Write what you need to write. Don't put your actual name in it, and just call it a day. Get those pictures down, get those events down. You don't want to forget some of that stuff, and trauma has a way of leaving us with false memories, and it's not very helpful. So if you write things down, you draw things, I find that it really, for me personally, it really, really helps. So when I said that faith doesn't just reside in four walls and a steeple, the takeaway is that it's in you, and therefore accessible at any time, anywhere. If you need a little extra help focusing, there are many, many other religions and sacred practices to explore and get peace from, but you have to do the work to find what feels right for you and find out how big your cup is and how much you need to fill it and how often. In saying that, I find that like-minded artists that have the most life experience have an openness to expression and an understanding of something greater than themselves, even if they can't put a name to it. And that is what makes their artwork so interesting and sometimes overwhelming, to look at, which is the best ego killer I have experienced in life so far.
Thanks, Katie. We're going to go to a song now. This is Bad Dream Breaking by Altar Boy. This one is a really good song to listen to when you're waking up in the middle of the night with a bad dream. It actually woke me up in the middle of the night from a bad dream. So this is Bad Dream Breaking by Altar Boy.
Coming to you from Rockingham, IPL Radio.
Welcome back to the Yarn, Homespun Arts and Music. That was Bad Dream Breaking by Altar Boy. We've soon got Bob Rees, the musician from Albany, coming onto the show. But first of all, we're joined by artist KatyMcManus, who I met at her exhibition Idols Unlocked in August this year. My favourite piece was a tip trick of mandalas on a beautiful red background entitled The Sacred Portal. I liked the colour and tranquility of the piece and was also moved by your favourite piece, if I can pronounce this, is Papalotti.
Oh, it's close. That's the best one so far. It's Papalotl.
It's Papalotl.
Very close.
As you described, painting was a cathartic experience for you in terms to coming to terms with personal pain and loss.
Yeah, so, this is the Mental Health Network, so I tried to really think about where my art comes from and how it's tied to my happy days and my sad days. And my depression stems from the loss of my grandfather, but it was amplified by my miscarriage years later. And I think it's really important to finally talk about those things, because bottling up has not been serving me very well. And I feel like ever since I've been talking about it more and more, my art's been getting better, and I feel better. And I make art always in the pursuit of healing that pain, and It's Papalotl was the most healing manifestation so far. It's been, the whole process was unlike any other painting I made from start to finish. She's an Aztec goddess in charge of the paradise world, where all the children go that have suffered a brief life on Earth. She guards them and keeps them safe, and is represented by moths or butterflies. But when forced to fight, she can become quite monstrous, as any, stout mother must become, and her feathered wings turn into sharpened blades. She turns completely black and has been depicted with vampire-like teeth, just like Kali, earning her the nickname the Obsidian Butterfly. As Catholicism taught me growing up that unborn, unbaptized babies, like my son, is either burning in hell or in limbo or purgatory or whatever, I thought surely there must be a sunnier end for this innocent lost soul. And Mexico answered the call in their mythology, in their Aztec mythology. The Aztec goddess is still pretty relevant today. You can see her in a lot of different mediums. She's found in cartoons, comic books, movies, TV series, and most commonly in Californian Chicano literature.
Can you describe the pieces, creating a picture for our listeners to imagine?
Yeah, and this painting, it's quite large. I can't remember the dimensions exactly, but I think it's 2 meters by 1 meter, at least. In this painting, we see the profile of a woman with rounded features to suggest health and fertility. Her hair is in a loose bun, and strong wind, which represents time and the clearing of chaff, is blowing strands of hair in front of her face, representing nonconformity and femininity. And playing in those titanium white locks are golden butterflies finished in 24 karat gold, representing the souls of the children she's meant to look after, like a mother. The painting is completely black, and the image is done in white pastels. Now, I do a lot of woodwork as well. I like playing with different woods, and being here in Australia, I get to play with the hemlock now, which wasn't really an option in the States, which is amazing. It's beautiful. It takes stain like a champ. I custom mounted this canvas on hemlock and finished the edges in cork, which took me 3 days all up. I wanted to keep it monochromatic to experiment with tonal values instead of my traditional glazed paintings, which are done in layers of transparent pigments on a full color spectrum.
Okay, and without going into specifics, how did creating It's Papalotto help you through a difficult time?
This is where it was unusual. So I usually paint one of two ways. I plan and research for months and paint in a few days. Or I paint for months and months until I can connect with source to see what exactly she's having me make. This painting started as a design I made in Photoshop. I then fit the dimensions into the Fibonacci sequence and then painted over the course of 1 week. I had such a clear image of what I wanted because this woman kept appearing in my meditations, and then she started to appear in my dreams, and then I started having lucid dreams with her, but I didn't know why I was painting her. I didn't know who she was. I didn't know what she represented. Mm-hmm. Then, by pure luck, a few weeks after I completed her, I happened upon the stories of It's Papalotto, and the dots finally connected for me. Everything I was thinking about was represented in one goddess story, right down to the butterflies I had painted. I was awestruck and grateful to have answers. She has been incredibly healing, but I must say goodbye to her, as she was purchased at my last solo
Was
that you attended.
that I attended?
Yeah.
She was purchased there.
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad that she's got a connection with the buyer. And I love that it's going to Queensland. I haven't even been to Queensland yet, so we'll see who gets there first, my painting or me. But it's been a really good experience, and I like when collectors come along, they're like-minded. You know, this girl teared up and really, spent a lot of time asking me questions about it and really seemed genuinely interested in including it in her collection or home and knowing everything about it. And it's just really comforting to know that, it's not just someone buying your painting, it's a collector. There's a big difference, and that image of It's Papalotto, just the idea of watching her, having her watch over my son, will stay with me forever.
Oh, that's
I love
lovely.
that mythology story. I love that story.
I'm a big fan of practicing art to maintain my mental well-being. Has this been the case for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would be dead if it wasn't for music and artwork. I'm so grateful for other collectives of artists and independent artists that make that effort and form bands and get to festivals and promote their stuff, because it really does heal. I was really struggling in my teens, and after my grandfather died, it was the first time I experienced depression or suicidal thoughts, and Einema from Tool saved my life. That album is just still to this day one of the most well-crafted, well-thought-out, well-produced, well-marketed, solid albums. I could listen to that on repeat for weeks. But it saved my soul. It was the first album I had ever listened to that spoke to me, that I felt like, wow, there's somebody out there that feels the same way I do, and listen to what they're doing with that frequency and that energy and that feeling. That must be so cleansing. So yeah, I would be dead if it wasn't for music and art. They've been the most reliable, versatile constants in my life. I highly recommend art and or music therapy to anyone dealing with mental issues. If you're too shy for that, just go and make some art, buy different mediums and experiment. I don't know anyone who isn't creative in some way. You just have to try and have fun figuring it out.
Yep. That's why I love my mosaics. It's my go-to for looking after my mental health.
Yeah.
Bit of mosaics, bit of local music. Speaking of local music, let's have a listen to some Where the Wild Things Grow by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds with his then Kylie Minogue, of all people. Welcome back to the Yarn, Homes Fun Arts and Music. That was Where the Wild Roses Grow by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds with guest Kylie Minogue. Speaking of guests, I'm here joined by KatyMcManus, local artist, who was just telling us about how she uses art to maintain her mental well-being and music. Also, how can our viewers view your art? Do you have a web address, an Insta handle, Facebook name, etc., etc.?
Well, I know Facebook is the go-to for everyone, but my anti-Trump painting, lovingly called Animal Farm, 2020 got me shadow banned for life from Facebook, so now you can find my collective works, me oversharing, and really getting into the meat of my depression and proactive artistic methods to help counteract those stressful times on my Instagram account at KatyMcManusArt. That is KatyMcManusArt, and KatyMcManusArt.com is where you can browse hundreds of different products with my designs on them. And if you order now, there's a huge sale going on, and there is international shipping, and it's guaranteed to arrive in plenty of time for Christmas. I'm also over at Patreon for those of you that want to collect art but aren't sure where to start. I have many different tiers, and most include receiving artwork at your door every 3 months. There's prints, mugs, clothing, and much more over there, so please check it out.
Do you have any upcoming exhibitions you'll be preparing for?
My next solo will be held in November 2023, long ways away, and I am taking only 6 commissions next year as Paul and I are planning a family and moving to a new home, hopefully, fingers crossed, if we can find a 5-acre block. And I want to take some workshops from other artists. So 2023 is earmarked for letting my creativity flow like a freshwater spring. If any listeners today would like to book one of these limited spots, you can contact me for pricing information by emailing me at KatyMcManus@artistryapproach.com, which you can find the link to on my website and Instagram.
And what are your plans for 2023? Will you stay in Perth?
Yeah, WA will always be home for me. And I'll never live too far from Perth, I don't think, but I will be traveling back to the U.S. and Indonesia to visit family and friends in the new year. Trying to learn new painting practices and hopefully starting a family in the new year in a new home. You know, until then, I'm happy spending time with lovely people like you, talking about art and useful mental health aids.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming in today, Katy. Thank you for sharing so openly your story and not being afraid to talk about what was really going on for you as you were going through your artistic journey and your journey of life. We're going to be joined by another fantastic musician shortly, Bob Rees. But first of all, we'll just wrap up with Katy. And
yeah, I'm grateful. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for giving artists like me a platform to share our experiences and let people know that we are all a little messed up and flawed and imperfect, and it's okay. You're not alone, and there is help out there if you need it in many, many forms. If anyone listening today is struggling with their mental health, help is available by simply Googling mental health aids available in your area.
yeah,
There's no shame in it, and you can do this anonymously and discreetly. It was an honor being here. Thank you for having me.
thanks for coming in, Katy. We're going to cross to a song.